Hey guys, welcome to Crescent Gaming. I'm Looseie, and before we get started today, I just want to give a very big thank you to everybody that's been supporting me. That way we can keep on bringing you more content like this. Anyway, so without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. Alright, now as you can see on the screen, here's the score breakdown for ESO, or Elder Scrolls Online. We're just going to shorten it up to ESO. Same way we do every other game on the channel, goes to the same 6 categories, and then we're going to go through in a little bit more depth on each category to give you guys a better understanding of what's going on. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the first category. Now, even though its age kind of shows a little bit in some places, ESO is still one of the best looking games out. Now, some zones really look great and they pull you into the game, especially with the soundtracks. You'll notice that when you're doing boss fights that some of the music is pretty epic and it will kind of get your heart racing and feel like, oh yeah, you know, I'm in the fight. So they're really done very well. Now, whether you're a hardcore fan or this is your first time into the Elder Scrolls universe, you'll notice that there will be all the places you either remember from playing other games or places that obviously if you're new to the franchise you won't have heard. But they are all very unique, individual. Now some are, you know, behind different expansions. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now aside from that, the performance for the game outside of Cyrodiil is for the most part, I mean, excellent. The type of polish you would expect from a AAA game company. And the animations for the spells and the abilities are also done very well, and they do feel very weighty, sometimes clunky. And there really isn't that much negative to say, honestly. The color palette choice is kind of questionable. It's a little desaturated. It is worth mentioning, and actually kind of important to note, that all the footage you're going to see on the screen has been me adjusting, adding about 25% saturation through my AMD control panel for this game itself. So it's not a filter, it's just, you know, per game basis, I guess you could say it as a filter, but AMD and NVIDIA graphics card can both do the same things. Truly, the biggest hit that ESO took when it came to the score was, at times, the literally unplayable world v world. It gets to a point, especially during peak times throughout the day, or depending on, you know, where you are in America, vice versa, you know, overseas or not, and it almost becomes to where you literally get logged off. Like, it kicks you off of the server, you go back to the login screen. It's just absolute madness. That is definitely something that these guys need to get under control, that they've been saying they have, and it just hasn't happened yet. So I guess we'll see. But other than that, I'd have to say the performance is pretty damn good. It's just that one thing they do need to fix. Alright, I guess we'll just get this one over with first. Let's start by explaining the different modes that you have to PvP. There's 2 main modes, but there's technically 3. So the first one is what you're seeing on screen now, which is the Battlegrounds, and that's 4v4v4, so it's 3 teams that all just kind of duke it out. No CP or champion point system is in place here at all, so it is strictly just your gear and your skill. There's no extra passive system that we're going to get into in a tad bit here. Now, I want to say this before I go any further. Yeah, it's not horrible, and I don't want this to sound extremely negative, but there are some things that are really hurting the game right now when it comes to PvP. And unfortunately, there's a few things that they could be doing. Particularly one, the champion point system needs to be completely reworked. You'll notice doing Battlegrounds that the PvP it's pretty night and day. You can go in with the same spec, same food, same gear in both modes, and they will play pretty differently depending on what you're doing. You know, if you're really looking to get into PvP, I would probably tell much newer players to, you know, stick to the Battlegrounds. You know, the champion point system is, man, it is a hell of a system. I'll say that. I will say that. Alright, now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the World v World v World Siege, and this is Cyrodiil. And as you can see, I did speed the footage up a tad bit, because I just want you guys to get an idea of the vastness of the map. It is actually very big, and all I'm doing here is running from the one siege location to the very next closest siege location. And this is like 175% sped up footage, so as you can see, it did take a minute to get there. Now in this mode is when you're going to notice the CP and the constant patch changes and balancing changes and mechanic changes, and honestly, an unnecessarily toxic community. This game has never been competitive. It never will be competitive. So you wouldn't expect this. If you've ever played Call of Duty, it's kind of Call of Duty-ish community, but for no reason. I mean, some people will whisper you just out of pure hatred, especially when you dump on somebody. So you will have to be ready for that. That is a part of the game. Alright, now on to the next, I guess you could say, touchy subject, the cash shop. As you can see here on the screen, there is a pretty huge cash shop, and there's actually a few different ways that they can collect money from you. Obviously the first is buying the game. It is a buy to play model, and the expansions are also buy to play. Now with the expansions comes along things of the nature such as the Warden class and the Necromancer class with the latest expansion, so you will not be able to play those unless you have access to those expansions throughout some form of DLC purchase. Sometimes they do a bundle and things together. Now there is also RNG boxes, which you just saw on the screen, which I can't believe. But here's the main kicker, the ESO Plus. It's a sub without being a sub. And the craft bag, which you see me circling on the screen right now, is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And what I mean by this is you can only use it if you have the $15 a month sub. And you can get the sub one time and unlock it, put crap in it, but you can never put things in it until you have the ESO Plus again. You can take things out. Now, along with that, as you can see here, this is all the different DLCs that you can purchase and buy, which lock your crafting. In a lot of cases, some of the better sets are locked behind some of those DLCs. You can't craft them, or you can't go to the dungeons, really, and get them. Ones that are bind on pickup, it's just something you can't get because you can't even go to that zone. Now, there's a few other things for utilities and houses. There is one thing for research, it is worth mentioning that you can instant research. And of course, that takes real life time. You'll see when you get in that system, when you go for a nice trade, it will take 29 real days, unless you use one of the instant researches that you see here on the screen. Now, other than that, there is wardrobes for yourself. You can get different outfits, and that is account-wide. Pretty much everything that you unlock is also account-wide. So you can equip them to different characters, and it does look different depending on, male, female, Khajiit, wood elf, whatever it may be. So you have all your different mount skins, housing skins. So it's a give and take cash shop, with a grain of salt. Oh man, I mean, the PvE it's completely night and day, from PvP. You have, just absolutely tons and tons and tons of lore. I mean, like Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn type amounts of lore. So, obviously the story, if you follow along with it, is really good. Between all the different expansions and the different DLCs, they always have some kind of different content that you can go along with as a story. And usually a main story quest for every single zone. And almost everything is voice acted. So a lot of time and effort, went into that part. So the PvE side of the game it's pretty damn good. Now the combat system, obviously like in visuals, there's no tab target here. This is a live action combat system, so what's in the middle is going to get hit, and if that's not, some of them obviously abilities do follow, they have a homing kind of mechanic in the game. Other than that, the combat's, really great. What you're seeing on screen is, one of the dungeons. This is a 4-man dungeon. They offer 12-player trials. There's also single and multiplayer delves and kind of public dungeons. So there's quite a good bit of different content that you can do strictly just in kind of dungeon running. Now, one thing that's kind of unfortunate is that most of the content can be soloed. Even things that aren't designed to be soloed can be. So there's kind of a strange, almost BDO aspect here in that sense, where you do feel pretty solo in a lot of parts of the game. And unfortunately, at least in my own opinion, unless you're extremely good at doing, massive amounts of inventory management, the crafting part of the game is essentially locked behind the $15 subscription, which gives you access to the crafting bag, or also as ESO Plus, which we mentioned previously in the cash shop section. And that's the main reason, because the crafting system is so extensive that you do need all that inventory space. It's also worth mentioning that even if you don't own the expansions or some of the DLCs, there is still a lot of just base content, so you will always have something to get. Jumping straight into the grind, guys, one of the things that'll definitely keep you busy here is crafting. There is literally hundreds of sets in this game. I mean hundreds. As you can see on screen, here's a list of the majority of the current sets that are in the game right now. So as you can see, if you're a crafting nut, there is plenty to keep you busy. Do keep in mind, though, that some of these sets are going to be locked behind DLC or expansions, because your character can't go to those places to make it. However, the majority of those sets you can purchase from the auction house or the traders, but they can get pretty expensive, especially some of the new ones. So just keep that in mind. Now, even more convoluted and more complex than the gear system and the crafting system here, depending on the different levels, you can make different things for different levels. We're going to jump straight into touchy ground, the champion point system. And here is something that is it's a leveling system after 50, basically, to give you something else to do. However, the impact that it has been extremely questionable. Adding on to frustration with the champion system, especially when you're just leveling up, you will find that the crafting bag, again, we keep going back to that, will become an issue, because crafting is such a big deal here, and you can do it for multiple level characters if you want to keep somebody pre-level 50, and that's their deal, the one that's not veteraned out, as people tend to call it. Another one of the unique systems is also how every class has a magicka or stamina build. So depending on how you want to play, either more magicka based or more stamina based, there's different play styles for each character class. However, some of them don't translate as well, and obviously some are better than others. This can be, again, partially going back to the champion point system, which we're not going to go into further detail on. There's plenty of videos out there enough talking about some of the things that could be changed for the better. However, again, going back to crafting, gathering itself is also very tedious, meaning there's things all over the place. I mean, hundreds and thousands of different things that you can pick up and grab. So you really have to have a lot of inventory space, or particularly know exactly what you're going to go get so you don't run out, because it just on and on and on. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different items to keep your inventory full. So there's always going to be something for you to do. Sometimes it may be inventory management. You can buy bank tabs for you have an account-wide bank, but eventually you'll find that fills up too, especially with all the gear sets. And if you're like me and like to play multiple tunes, you'll find it easier to swap out your gear sets through the main bank tab through your account-wide bank. Alright, so let's start this section with the positive. First off, you're going to notice there are a lot of players, especially when you go to the main city. It is a very populated game, so there's always got that feeling that people are around. So they kind of, it fits in, it's great for RPing. There is a lot of housing things and a lot of emotes and all this, kind of extra things that you can do to your character and stuff to kind of really add that role-playing element in. I mean, after all, it is the Elder Scrolls. Now, there's also tons of online resources as well. There's a wiki page. There's different, guys that have builds and whatnot, just like some of the other games. Now, however, one of its main problems is that the community score. One of the reasons I gave it what it is because it's such a solo-based game. You would think that, you know, having these tankular DPS type things would make people want to play more together, but once you get to a certain point, going back to some of the other systems, you can do almost all the content alone. So it does make it seem quiet at time to time. And of course, when you join a group through the LFG system, usually no one talks until everybody wipes, and then they blame everybody for everything. So it can get pretty really quickly. Now there's a multi-guild system here incorporated, hence because of the world v world v world. You got 3 different factions going at it. So you can be up to 5 different guilds at a time. You know, some focus on PvE, some focus on, you know, raiding, some focus on crafting. But really the main thing here, as you can see on the screen, is that they just consistently change everything so much, so often, with almost no good reason. They seem to do things that players haven't asked for. And when I mean they, I'm talking about the devs. And as you can see on the screen, here's just, you know, one of the changes, and these are patch notes, and it goes on and on and on and on. And because of all this, you have this kind of toxic PvP environment for no good reason. Again, it's kind of like Call of Duty, but there's no reason for any form of that being, especially since there's no competition. So it's very strange, and it does make it seem like that, especially if you're more of a PvPer. You will notice the community is a little more raw than if you would, you know, say you didn't know a raid. So, yeah. Alright, thank you guys for making it all the way through the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And turn notifications on so you can find out when we have the next videos coming. And we will see y'all next time.